Hello everyone, welcome to this video. So in this video we are going to build this simple note-taking application. So this application is used to take notes, like the notes application on your mobile phone, or like Notepad or Notepad plus plus, or yeah, whatever you can actually imagine it to be. But yeah, it's basically used to take notes, right? So yeah, let me show you the features of this application and we can jump into the code. So when you visit the application, you see this first page. It is a very simple login page. So here you just log in with your username and then a pin. Alright, so if you don't have an account, you can go to register, and here you just need your name, your username, and then a pin. You just generate a pin or create a pin, and then you can click on register. But first of all, let me log in with an already created user so that I can show you the features. Right, so let me log in with a username called John, and I'm going to enter the pin. So first of all, let me enter a wrong pin and try to log in. So when I enter a wrong pin or a wrong username, it's basically going to say unable to log in, check credentials. Right. But once my pin is correct, in this case it is just 1 2 3 4, I can log in. Right, now when I log in, these are all the notes I have. Right, so as you can see, this is the user that is logged in, John. I can log out here, which is going to log me out. But yes, this is all the notes I have. You can see I have about 7 notes here. So if I want to add a new note, I can click on new notes, right? And here you can also see some different layouts for the notes. At the moment, I think it's the list layout. So if I click here, it's going to change the layout of the notes. So if this is how I want it, yeah, I can keep it like this. And I am also persisting the state, right? So even if I refresh it, it still knows that I have logged in. I have this layout set, and it's going to keep the state. So it's not going to refresh. It's not going to reset it, basically. So here you can switch between the different layouts. Now, for example, I can click on one of these notes, or I can create a new note, basically. So for example, if I click on an already existing note, you can see I am using a rich text editor. Right, so you can basically have the notes in any style or formatting style you want at all. You can even add code, right, as you can see here. That's what I said from the beginning. So here you can format your text anyhow you want, basically, because this is a rich text editor, and I'm going to show you how simple it is to add something like this. So here I can basically update this, right? So let me use something which is obvious. Let me just say dash updated, right? And then I'm going to hit save here. So you can see these are some action buttons here. Alright, so if I go back here, you'd see that now that note is now the first note because I just updated it. So here you can see the title is updated to budget for new house project updated. Alright, and you can see the last updated time. Nice. So I click on it, I can edit the notes, or I can create a new note from here. So when I click on create new note, then I am starting a new note. So I can put my title here, put the content of the note here. So I can just say test notes, test content, like this. When I click save, well, you don't see any pop-up or anything like that saying saved, but then it's actually saved. So when I go here, you'd see test notes on, and here I can click on delete to delete that particular note as well. Now if I go to new notes here, I can click on open here as well to open the notes that I have. So for example, this one again, or maybe let's open a different one like to-do list, and maybe grocery lists. So I can open any notes at all from here. So here is for opening a note, here is for saving, and this one is to save as, right? So for example, I want to save this note with a different name. Right, so when I click on save as, it's gonna open a pop-up here. Right, so if I want to change the title, by default it's going to add a copy to the title so that it's not the same. Right, but then I can change the title here, or I can just click save, and as you can see, the note has been renamed to this one. And I can update it by changing the title here, or if I try to go to notes list, like you can see that here as well. Now from here you can also click on this button to create a new note, so you don't need to go back and click on that big button there. Alright, so you can click on this one to create a new note. So yeah, you can create notes, format it any way you want. So for example, if I say title, I can make it bold, I can make it italics, or make it underline. I can even do strike through, or I can remove the formatting. Right, so this is clear formatting, and I can even make it a code like this, right? Or I can even highlight it, right, for something like this. I can make it H1, H2, H3, H4, or I can make it a quote. So yeah, and this is for a line. These are list items, right? Ordered list items and all this. Now you can even embed a link right in your notes. So you can use this one to add a link and then save it. And when you want to remove the link, you can use this one, right? So this is for the alignment, like align center, align right, align left. So, and then this one is for undo and redo as well. All right. So you can see, I mean, it has everything a note or a text editor, which is used to write notes, should have. So basically that's it. All right. So here, if I go to notes list, I see all my notes. I can log out here, and it will take me to the login screen. So if I log into a different user, right, so there is this user, hopefully that's correct, with a pin like this. Yeah, so this user, I mean, there's two nodes for this user basically, as you can see. So depending on your, I mean, your username and your pin, you get your notes. Alright, perfect. So if I log out again and I want to register, so I can register again. Maybe I can say Eva, and then I can say username. So for example, if I use a username which already exists, alright, so if I try to register, it's gonna say enter name, username, and pin. So I need to provide a pin as well. So I can just say 1111, so 4 ones like this, and I can hit this, and it says username not available. Right, that's because there is the John username in our system already, so you need to choose a different username. So I'm going to say Eva12, right, and I can hit and register. So yeah, it takes me back to my the page where I can start adding new notes. So as you can see, no notes to display, so I can start adding test notes. Alright, so test notes, and I can save it, go back to notes list, and I can see my untitled notes here. I can remove that as well. So that is basically all the features of this application. Now we are going to be using React. We are going to use Supabase, right? As you can see here, this is my Supabase database with the users and then with the nodes. So we are also going to use a rich text editor from Mantine UI. It is called TipTap. So I'll show you how to use that. But then apart from that, we are also going to use Mantine Dev for our UI components. So it's going to be a fairly interesting project, but then as I said, it's a fairly easy or basic project, but then hopefully you can learn something new. So let's actually get started by creating a new project. Right, I'm using GitHub desktop, right, so I'm gonna call it quick notes, and I'm going to say 2. because the first one was used for the initial project. And here I'm going to leave everything as it is. I'm going to keep it here. So create the repository. Alright, so the repository is created. I'm going to publish that. Alright, so here quick notes 2, and I'm gonna hit publish. Actually I made it keep it private. I'm going to change it on GitHub to be public so that I can share the source code with you, but then don't forget to make it public. Yeah, if you are creating your own, I mean, you can keep it private if you want. Alright, so I'm gonna open this in VS Code from here. Alright, so I'm gonna make this big, and I'm going to create a new project using Mantine. Alright, so let me open the terminal here. Make this one big, actually hide it. So clear the terminal. Let me make my VS Code a bit bigger so that you can see. Alright, so let's go to Mantine. Alright, so we're going to Mantine dev. Alright, so let's get a get started. Alright, so here when you go to framework guides, see I'm gonna use Vite. Alright, so first of all, you create a project using npm create Vite project. So let's go back. I'm going to paste that here. And I'm going to hit enter to create my project. Alright, so what is the name of the project? I'm going to say dot just to use the folder name, and I'm going to say ignore files and continue. I'm going to use React, going to use TypeScript, and there you go, I have my project created. Now first of all, I am going to do npm install to install the dependencies. Alright, so once the dependencies are done installing, I'm gonna go back to Mantine website here. Now here the next thing is installing the Mantine packages, right? So because I'm going to be using the Mantine components, I would need the Mantine core. I would also use a few hooks from Mantine, so I'll check this one, and I'm gonna come here. I'm gonna need this one as the next one. Alright, so this is what we're going to use to create the rich text editor. Alright, so Mantine uses TipTap to implement their rich text editor, and it's very easy. So now these are all the packages I would need from Mantine. So once I check this, I get the dependencies to install here. So I'm gonna copy this. Let's go back to VS Code. I'm gonna paste, install those as well. So the packages are done installing. Let's go back and see what next to do. Alright, so here we can set up the post CSS plugin setup. That is, if we are going to be doing some kind of we are going to be using the Mantine inbuilt functions in CSS and stuff like that, right? So I like to install these to have the post CSS config file set up as well, just in case I am writing some custom styles. It makes it very easy to use some functions like rem and other functions. So let me just install that. So I am going to do npm install -- save. Alright, so whilst that is installing, I can go back here and I can create this file. So put cssconfig.cjs. Let's go back. I'm going to create that file, paste that, and the packages are done installing as well. So let's go back. Let's go copy the content, and then let's come and paste that here. We can save this one, bring this one down, close this one because we are not going to open that again. Alright, so here, as you can see, we only need to add the Mantine provider. Alright, so and then the style as well. So first of all, I'm going to copy this, and then here it says we can add it in app.tsx, but I can also add it here. Alright, so basically inside main.tsx I can add it here as well. So let me just import the style, go back, import Mantine provider. Perfect. And I can come back here, so to wrap my entire application in this Mantine provider. Alright, so here gonna do this. Alright, so I save it, and we are basically done with the Mantine setup. So we can do npm run dev just to test our application. So our application is started on port 5173, so we can just go back here. Actually, we can just click on this so that it opens that. Alright, so yeah, this is our initial application. So let's just do a bit of cleanup. So I'm just going to remove everything. Just remove this as well. Get rid of all these imports, including this. I can leave the app.css here, but then I am going to remove everything. Save this one, and I am going to use a Mantine button here just to check that the button is working. So it's gonna say click me. So let me just import that from Mantine core, save it. Let's go to the website, and there you go. Alright, it actually works. Now it works you can see there is a border which is not supposed to be there, and the placement is also in the middle here. I think we are missing some styles that we need to clear inside index.css here. So you can basically we can basically clear everything. We can just leave the font family here. The rest is gonna go away, so that we have a clean slate to start from. Alright, so yeah, this is basically what we want. We can see the animation happening on the button, which means Mantine is working. Perfect. So let me do some more cleanup here. Let's just go and rename this one, call it quick notes. Let me just add 2 just to see that this is the second one we are building. Let me clear this space here as well. Yeah, everything should be fine. If you go here, alright, cool. Do we have the name changing? Yeah, quick notes 2. Alright, so now our Mantine setup is done. We are going to set up Supabase as well, so that we would be able to add data to our Supabase table in that project, right? So what you're going to do is go to Supabase. If you don't have an account already, just create an account there. It is 100% free. You get to create databases, and you get to test your application with free database. Yeah, so go here, create a new project. In this case, I'm going to use the same project called Quick Note. Right, so once you create the project, you can come here, and then here you can see the connect. Right, so this section is where we are going to get the configuration to connect to our application. So here we go to app frameworks. It is not Next.js, it is React, and the React we are using Vite. Right, so we will choose Vite here, and this is what we need to do basically. So we need to add the env file. So .env file. Let me just copy this one. Go back to VS Code. Alright, so I'm gonna create .env file. So .env, and I am going to paste that here. So once I save this one, I just need to make sure I go to get ignore and then add .env here, so that I don't push that to GitHub. Okay, so I've excluded that. As you can see here, I have the environment variable set. What is the next thing to do? So we have to create this file, utils.supabase.ts. This is where we create the Supabase clients by getting the environment variables, that is the URL and then the anon key, right? So I am going to copy this as well. I have to create utils and then supabase.ts. Right, so here I'm going to create a new file. So first of all, utils slash supabase.ts, and I am going to paste this here. Save it. Now you notice that I've not actually installed this here. As you can see, it is giving us error. So let me install this package as well. Alright, so just gonna do npm install Supabase.js package. Alright, so that's done installing. So as you can see, the error is gone now. There is an error here which is saying property env does not exist on type import metadata. Well, let's just forget about that. So yeah, we should be able to now start using Supabase, connect to yeah, so the next thing is to be able to use it. So we can just do Supabase stuff from our table name. Cool, nice. So we have Supabase added to our table as well. Alright. Okay, so you can go ahead and then create your tables, right? So in this case, I have just two tables, and you can click on create table, and then once you click on it, you can give your table a name. So in my case, notes and then users, right? So the notes is going to be used to keep track of all the notes, and then the users. So first of all, let's go to users. Alright. So this is the structure for the users table. So we have an ID, we have created at, we have name, we have the pin, right? So as you can see, because this is a demo app, I'm just storing the pin here as plain as plain text here or numbers, right? But then yeah, if you are doing this in reality, you should be able to encrypt these or like use an actual authentication from Supabase here, right? I just want to keep things simple. That's why I just have the users table and then I am storing this here. But even with that, I am also cautious that I don't basically display the pin on the client side or on the UI side. So it's just here. Alright, perfect. Now there is also the username, which is supposed to be unique as well. If I go to notes, first of all, there is the ID and created at, which is constant, but then there is also the title of the note, the content of the note. Now you can see that the content is somewhat like an HTML string, right? And yeah, I would show you why we are storing it this way, right? Because there are different options as to how you can store the content from your rich text editor inside your database. I think this way was much easy and simple. Now there is also the updated at, right? So this is keeping track of when the note is updated, because we are going to sort the notes by when it was updated. So if a note was basically updated recently, then that should pop up, right? It should be at the top basically. Now this is keeping track of the user's ID, so the particular user who created the note, so that we can basically fetch the notes based on the user's ID. So every user would have their own notes loaded for them, so that no one can load anybody's notes. You get it? Alright, so we have this user's ID. It is a foreign key, and it basically links to the user's table. So it knows that that user with this ID 1 is John. Alright, perfect, because there are other users here. Okay, so that's how our database is going to be like. Let's actually go back to VS Code. Alright, so let's start from here. I'm going to remove this one, and I'm going to add a container. Okay, so container, and I'm going to add the button inside that. Alright, so this is the container we're going to use to wrap all our application inside app.tsx. And here I'm going to say size md. I'm gonna do px, gonna basically say 0. Gonna do margin y lg, and I'm going to say min height at 600 pixels. Okay, so let's go back here. Let's refresh this one. So I'm going to keep this here just to use it as a guide, right? And then this is what we are working on. So yeah, probably we can see that, I mean, this is moved to the middle. That's because of our container, right? So if I go back and I give it a background color like bg gray, for example, like we can see our container here. Cool. So what we're going to do, we're not going to give it a background color. Alright, so we are going to have a card inside here. So this card is going to have pattern 0. It's going to be gonna reduce the radius, and I am going to give this card rather background. So gray dot 1 like this. So if I go back here, I can see it because there is no content in it. But if I just say hello, remove the unused import, then I should be able to see the card. Cool. So what are we going to do? We are first of all going to build our landing page. Alright, so we're going to have 3 pages basically. So the landing page, the note list page, and then the new notes page where we add new notes. So inside the cart, we are going to have our landing page. So we don't have that yet, so we are going to create that in components. So create a folder called components, and then I'm going to create a file called landing.tsx. Now as you saw, our landing page is going to contain, so if I log out from here, it's going to have the login, right? And then if we switch to register, you're going to see the register form. Alright, so I am going to do RFC, create our landing, save that, and I am going to create our login screen. That is a login form. Alright, so just like that. So this is our login screen, and this is the template, right? So first of all, I'm using avatar components here just to display the notebook, I mean the images you saw there. I am going to add this image shortly, but then there is also the input text, which you'd have to enter your username, and then password input to enter your pin, right? So I'm using password input just to be able to hide the characters in there. Now after that, you just have the login button, and then there is this register button, which will take you to the register page if you click on it, right? I'm putting it in a group just to be able to do justify and then do flex n to align it to the right side. Alright, so it's gonna be very similar to the register template, so I'm just going to copy this and then paste it for the register template as well. Alright, yeah, so we have the register screen as well. So based on which page I want to go, I'll just switch between these two screens, right? The login screen and then the register screen down here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to use a component called center just to align all my components in the center. That's coming from Mantine as well. Alright, now I want to use a stack so that there would be layouts from top to bottom, in a column form. So for example, if I put login screen here like this, so here I'm going to say align, and I'm going to say center. So for example, if I put login screen here like this, and I go here and import London. So I'll go to the UI, and as you can see, we have the form. Now I need to add the notebooks to get the images showing. So I have the image on my PC, so let me bring that in. I'm gonna put that here. Alright, so it's called notes.png. Alright, so just added that here. Alright, so that's what I am using here. So once I save it, I think it should be able to get the notes now. So let's try and refresh this again. Yeah, there you go. Alright, nice. So let's add some spacing. I believe we are missing some spacing. Probably maybe the main height that we should have here. It's supposed to be 550, and yeah, that should add some spacing up and down. Okay, so yeah, we are going to switch between the login screen and the register screen, and the way we are going to do that is we are going to use a basic state. Alright, so up here we are going to say use states like this. So const, and then we are going to say screen set screen. And then the type is going to be, let me just create the type here. So I am going to say type, so type screen is equal to login or register. Let me just bring that up here. So this is going to be the screen type. So I'm gonna type this data as well. So by default it is going to be login like that. Now when I click on this register button, it means I want to go to the register page, so I can say on click, set screen, and I am going to say register. So I'm going to do the same thing for the login button as well down here. This time it is going to be login. So when I come down here, I can now say screen is equal to login, then show the login screen, otherwise show the register screen. Yeah, just like that. So once I save it and I go back here, I see the login screen, but when I click on it I get the register screen. So I click on this one, it goes back to login screen. So as you can see, we have the username field, we have the pin field. If I go to register, we have the extra field, which is the name field, right? So I'm going to add all these as states so that we can basically get the values from the form. So here up here. You can just paste these. So we have pin, they are all using the use states. So the pin, the username, and then the name. So I can now add or tie the values, the state values to the form. So using the value and then the unchanged event. So I'm going to do that quickly. So I just did that. As you can see, value and then unchanged. So for example, the username, we have username and then set username either current.value. Same for pin, and then when we come to register, we have the username, the pin, and then the name as well, which is this one. So nice. So now we are able to keep track of our states, which is the pin, username, and then the name. So we would be able to use them now. So let me fold this. So let's now implement the login and register functionalities. So here inside login template, this is the button we are going to click to login. So here we can add an on click. So we can add an on click event. So on click, we can say handle login. We can add the same thing for the register. So this button here, and we can just say handle register. Now we've not created these, that's why we are getting the errors, but let's come here, up here, we can say constant handle login. Gonna make it an arrow function like this. Actually curly braces. I'm also going to do constant handle register. Like this. So let's first of all implement the login. So here we are going to basically connect to our Supabase database, because we are going to basically check that the user who is logging in is a user who has registered. So we first of all want to check that there is actually some values coming from, we would need the username and pin with the login. So we want to check if there is some values entered for pin and username first of all. So here we are going to say if pin.trim like this. So if it is not undefined, we also check username .trim. That is the only time we are going to add to our database, or we're going to check against our database. So here we are going to say constant. We're going to do our width. That means we need to mark this function as async. So we are going to use Supabase. So Supabase, and we need to import Supabase from utils. This one. So export Supabase here. This one is what we want to import. So I can just import it manually. Like this. And so we do supabase.form, and then we do users. So that is our table. And so we do dot select. Now this is what we want to do. So first of all, we want to say that where username, so we want to first of all check that username is actually equal to the username the person has entered, and we also want to check that the pin matches with the pin that the user entered. So these are the two constraints we are checking against. So first of all, we want to check that the username matches with the username there and the pin matches with their pin. So the user who is logging in should have a username and pin which matches a record in our database table. Alright, so once it matches, then it should be able to get us the data. So here we are going to get data or error. So if it is error, we're going to get an error. If it is if it passes or it's successful, we are going to get data. Alright, so here we can do if error. So if error, what are we going to basically do? We are going to console log the error. Alright, so at least for now, and then let's return. Otherwise, we are just going to get the data. So just going to say console.log data like this. Alright, so now before you get this to work, you have to make sure that in your Supabase table, alright, so for example users, I can go to your users table, you go to policies, and you have to make sure that you add you enable the select policies or the read access policies for all users, right? So because this is an open database, I mean, you don't need to have an authentication or be authenticated before you use it. You just log in with your username. We are not implementing a real authentication, so we just have to enable the read and insert access for all users, right? So you just go here and then you enable select access for all users, basically, right? Same for insert. So you have to add these two policies for it to work, otherwise you won't get any data coming back. Okay, so I'm going to open this one, the console. Let's go back to VS Code. Here, let me save this one, get it formatted nicely, and then I am going to try and test. Alright, so if I go back to my database, I know that there are some users there, so go back here, users. I mean, there are a lot of users here, so I'm going to use John, this user, with this user ID. Alright, so 1 2 3. Okay, so here I'm going to say John 1 2 3 4. That's the ID. Alright, so when I click on login, yeah, I get data because the user exists. So this is the user I am getting. Now if I enter a wrong user ID, for example 1 2 3, and I hit enter, you see I don't get anything back, right? So it's just an empty data, which means there is no user with this credentials, basically. So the same way, if this is correct and the username is not correct, I don't get any user back. Alright, so we are going to use this to validate if the user the username and then the pin actually exists. Alright, so here is when there is an error, when there is an actual error with our connection. Here we get data, either it is going to be empty or we are going to have an actual user. Alright, so here what we're going to do is I'm going to say constant user is going to be data. Alright, and then we're going to do index 0. But then because the data, if I hover over it, you'd see because the data is a list or null, I need to do the optional chaining check. Alright, so here I can just say if user, and so what we're going to do is now, because we want to get the user data without the pin, because we won't need the pin here. Alright, so we are going to get only the username, which is going to be user.name, and then the username itself, which is going to be user.username. Then we would also need the ID. So once I save it, let's just refresh this again. So John 1 2 3 4, click on this, so we get John, that's the username, and that's the ID. Alright, so let's go back. I am also going to set up a state to capture the errors. Alright, so let me just copy and paste this one. Alright, so I'm gonna say error, and then this one is gonna be set error. I believe that's correct. Alright, so wherever we think there's going to be an error, we can just set the error. Alright, so for example here we can set an error and say unable to log in or something like that. Alright, so instead of logging the error, we can just say set error. Alright, and here we'd say unable to log in. Alright, so we can add check credentials or something. So we are going to do the same thing for some other parts as well. So for example, where if there is a user, so here if there is a user, so we can add an else here and say that unable to log in, so you should check the credentials. Yeah, same thing again. Because if there is no user, it means that the credentials were wrong and we didn't get any user. Okay, so yeah, and then this if as well, we can give it an else. So for example, else, and this is when probably there isn't a value entered for pin or username. So here we can say set error, and then the message is going to be maybe you can just say enter username and pin. Alright, so we're going to use the error, we're going to use it down here basically. So inside this stack here, yes, we can say that, so if error, then we want to show an alert component, right? So there's an alert component, import from Mantine. Alright, now the variant is going to be light. The color of the alert is going to be red, and here is going to be the error message. Alright, so save that, and let's go back and check it again. So let's refresh this again, and let's first of all try to submit it. As you can see, enter username and pin. Right, so I have to enter username John, have to enter pin 123. Let's just enter a wrong pin, click on it, unable to log in, check credentials, we didn't get a user. Alright, so if we enter the correct pin, yeah, we now get a user. Alright, so we can now clear the error. So if we go back to VS Code where we get a user, alright, so we can say set error back to empty. Alright, so it means that when we get a user, we are going to log in, right? So it will take us to the next page, which is where we can see our nodes list and be able to add new nodes. Right, so let's do that one. Now with that one, because I am not using anything like routing, alright, I'm going to use a global state to keep track of the pages. Alright, so I just want to add like page numbers or something like that, right? So it's just a simple routing I'm going to do, and I'm going to use a context to basically implement that. That's because it's just a simple global state I'm going to keep track of. Now, apart from the page number I am going to keep track of, I'm also going to set up my context to keep track of all the other properties that we are going to be needing. You're going to be needing for the other pages and I am going to show you. Now I'm going to set that up. I'll show you the properties and all the methods we are going to need, and whilst we use them, you'd see the reason why we have that in our context, right? So I'm going to set up our context, and then I'm going to show you what we have in our context. Alright, so I have added the context, and yeah, I just want to speed up the process a little bit. First of all, I just created a context folder here. Alright, and inside it I have app context.tsx. Alright, so the main thing to know, first of all, I am creating a context using create context from React, which is using this interface that I'm going to show you. And down here, as you can see, I'm doing the provider, and I'm passing children here, right? So I can now use this app context provider, and I can wrap all my components. I can wrap it around my components so that it will provide the context for all the components that are going to be in here. I mean, you know how context work, right? Okay, so this is what I have in my context, right? So first of all, I am using it to keep track of the user, which is the logged in user. Alright, and as I said, I am also using it to keep track of the page I am on at the moment. Alright, so note ID, note title, I am also keeping track of these, and you know why I am keeping track of these. Alright, and then there is also the layout type, which I am keeping track of. Alright, so the layout type is where you want to show the notes as a list layout or as a grid layout. Right, and these are all methods to update these, right? So for example, set user is going to set a user wherever we need to set a user, set note ID, set note title, set page, set layout type. So these are for these states, right? And here, instead of use states from React, I am basically using use local storage, and that is coming from Mantine, right? And this is because I want to persist the states for all my states. So basically, the note title, note ID, the page number, the layout type, the user, I want to persist them unless like a different user logs in, then it will replace the information. Right, so that is the reason why even if you refresh the page, it still knows the page you are on. It keeps you on the page. It keeps the logged in users details, and yeah, things like note ID and other things like that. So these are just a way to persist the states in local storage so that we don't lose the data when we refresh the page. Alright, so this is how my context is going to look like. So I'm just passing these as the values so that I can use them in any components that is within this context. So the way we are going to use this context is we are going to go to main.tsx again here. Alright, and what we're going to do is we are going to, inside here, we're going to say app context provider. So we want to provide that for all our children components, which is within app. Alright, so we save this, and yeah, that should be it. We should be able to use the context in any part of our application. Now, to be able to use the context, I am going to create a file. Alright, so it's going to be hooks.ts, and what this hooks file is going to do is I'm going to create a simple hook which is going to provide which is going to allow me to use my context in any part of the application, right? So here, as you can see, I'm calling app context here with a use context, and I am basically returning the context. So here, if there is no context, it's just going to throw that use app context must be used within an app context provider, basically. Alright, so import this, and then let me also import the app context from the context file I created. And here you can see, right, the app context the app context is basically an iapp context or null, right? So it's the reason why I am checking if the context actually exists. Then it will return that. If not, it will just throw an error. So this is what we are going to use. Instead of having to put this in every part of our code, we will just use the hook, and then we will get the values from the context, right? So save that. And a typical example is when we come back to our landing page, we can start using it here. So we can basically say use app context like this. We can create constant, and here what do we need? First of all, we want to get set user like this, right? And here where we log the user, we basically want to set the user details, right? So here, cut it and then paste it here. Nice. Now, one thing I didn't show you is that yeah, see these types that I'm using, they are basically coming from a types file that I created. So these are just some interfaces that I am creating. This is the layout type, either it's a list or grid. So this is the user details. So you can see it's the same as what we have in our database, and this is the note details as well. So yeah, if you were wondering where these types are coming from, that's where it's coming from. So let me just close this for now. So I'm setting the user. Now one thing I want to also basically set is the page, right? So the page I want to move to. So we can also get set page like this. Let's go back. So the page we want to move to is page 1 basically. So we can put that here. Right, so this is going to set the page to page 1. Now inside app.tsx we just have the landing page here. Right, so we don't have the other pages. So let's now start doing some checks here. Right, so we can use app context here again. So you just have to do const, alright, and then we will get the page here. So we can check the page number, right? So page if the page is 0, it means we are on the landing page. So we check if page is 0 like this, then it means it is going to show the landing page. So just do this. Now if the page is 1, we are going to go to the note list page basically. Alright, so I'm going to create this component. Now let me do the other one, right? So this is going to be the third component, and this is going to show the new note so that I can create these two components. So here I'm going to create notes lists.tsx. So let me just generate that. Okay, so there is a mistake here. Let's correct that. Right, so let's correct that from here, and I'm going to create another file which is going to be new notes.tsx. Alright, so save these, and then I'm going to import them here. Alright, so let's try and import these and this as well. Alright, so save it, and now if we go to the UI and we log in, we should be able to go to the next page. Alright, so here I'm gonna say John, and here I'm going to say 1 2 3 4, log in, and there you go, we are on the note list page. Perfect. So on the note list, what are we going to do now? First of all, let's actually add our header. Here we are going to the card again, actually inside the card, not another card. So inside this card, so we are going to, it's just the group on this, and I'm gonna have a title coming from Mantine with a title saying quick notes. So the group, I'm going to disable the padding around this group. Right, should be inside here. So I'm gonna give it a background, right? So it is indigo dot one, and then we do justify, we do space between. So if I go here, it's here, we have quick notes. Now later we are going to put the layout buttons here. Actually, let's put it there. So that's going to be the next. So let me actually get that. So alright, and then let me import these components from Mantine. This is going to be from Tablet Icons. It comes with Mantine, same as this. So these are all coming from Tablet Icons. So when you install Mantine, it installs this. I mean, when we copied the packages, this was included, even though like I didn't point it specifically, but it's part of the Mantine dependencies that you'd install. So we have an icon library already added to our code, and we can import icons from it. Right. So here on click, we set the layout type to list or grid. Right. So we are going to get this method. You remember, we have it on our context. Right. There you go. So this is going to change it to list or grid. Now we only want this to show when we are on the note list page, right? So we don't want to show this when we are on the login page or when we are on the new notes page. So what we're going to do is we are going to do the page check here, right? So page is equal to 1. Right, that's the only time we are going to show this. Alright, so let's save that, and when we go to the UI, we should be able to see it because we are on page 1. So just refresh this, and this is supposed to keep us on the same page because we are persisting the page, we are persisting the state. Alright, so yeah, I think it is just taking some time because of the new library imports. I mean, that's how Vite works. So you'd see that it is optimizing the new library imports. That's the Tablet Icons we imported. So you'd see that it is pending, doing some kind of caching and stuff like that. But yeah, once it is done, it shouldn't do that again. It does that once, and it should be able to do that. I mean, you should be able to work fine the next time. Right, so alright, so as you can see, we have these buttons here, right? So we set it to less than grid, right? We can see it right now because we are not using the values to change the layout. Alright, so yeah, we have our header, and let's work on our note list. Let's go back to VS Code here. Now I'm going to add a new component, right? So alright, so I just added this new component. It's called new note button. Alright, so you saw from the finished app. If I show you again, alright, so let's log in on alright, so you saw that we have this button, right? And when I change the layout to this, we have it here. So these are the two buttons to add new notes. I mean, they do the same thing. It's just different button styles. So when it's this layout, you see it's here, and when it's this layout, you see it's here. Alright, so that is basically what this new notes button is doing. So we have the first button with a different style, and then the second button with a different style. Right, you can see some of the styles are very similar, but then things like the width and then the height are different. Okay, now if I specify that I want type 1, then it's going to show this. If I want type 2, then it's going to show like this button. You can basically use something better to do it, but just a simple way to use like whichever button I want. So I have that component, and inside my note list, that is what I am going to use first. So here what I'm going to do is going to basically say first of all, let's use app context. So const and here what I am going to need is the layout type. Alright, so here I'm going to say if the layout type is equal to list. That is where we are going to basically say this one. So let me put it in a group. So I'm going to say new notes button like this. And then I'm going to specify the type. It's going to be the first type, which is going to take the forward. Right. So we would see that if I change it here, it doesn't show that button, but then if I go here, it shows that button. Nice. So yeah, that is the first one. That is if the list type is equal to list, we want to show this button. Okay, so I want to add some spacing. You saw that, I mean, it was very close to the header, so I want to add some spacing, and then let me also do some pattern X. Alright, just to add some spacing. Nice. Let's go down here. Add a box. Box is more like a div. Import from Mantine. Alright, then inside here I'm going to do a divider. Alright, so the divider is basically this one, which says the number of notes. So let's go back, and the way we do that is we use a label. Alright, so I can just say notes like this. Alright, when I go here, you see like it's in the middle. I want it to be here, so I can change the label position. Alright, and then just say left. Perfect. It will come here. Now I want this one to be a title, right? So the label can accept React node, you can see. So instead of adding a string, I'm going to use title component. like this, and the other is going to be h4. So I specify 4 like this, and I say notes. So later I'm going to put the number of notes here. So for now, let me just say 4. Save that, and when I go here, as you can see, now I'm going to add some pattern X, LG, supposed to be LG, and then margin Y, which is going to be MD. Alright. So now I'm going to create a few more components, right? And those components are going to be, first of all, there's going to be a loading component, and there is going to be a no notes card or no notes component. So when there is no notes, it's just gonna show that there is no notes. Alright. So I am also going to create the 2 different note cards. Alright, so let's go here. So I'm going to create this component, which is going to show the list, and I'm also going to create this card, which is going to show it in a grid form. Right. So I'm going to add that quickly, and I'll take you through. So okay, so if you look at here, you'd see that I have added a couple of components. So the first one is the loading component, right? So it's a very simple component. Now this is a loader from Mantine, right? So you get that spinner. Alright, so that loading spinner, and there is a text below that saying loading notes. So when it is in a loading state, we are going to show this component, and here no notes card. So when there are no notes, we are going to see no notes to display, right? And there is going to be a button to say add new notes. Now here on click is calling create new notes. Now create new notes is this page, right? So page 2, which we are going to implement, and then we are resetting the notes ID and then the notes title in our context as well, which we would use on this particular page. So that's all what this component is doing. Basically, we would use that as well. Now these are the other 2 components that I have, right? So we have the notes item bar and then the notes item card. So first of all, let me show you the notes item card. Alright, so this is showing the notes as a card. So I'm using the card component from Mantine, and you see the action icon, which is basically the delete icon. Now I'm going to show you these methods. I'm going to take you through these methods, but then I'm just wiring up these methods on these buttons basically to be able to delete. There is the action icon which shows the trash, and this here shows the avatar, which is the icon, the book icon. Now we have the note title, and then we have the last updated date. I'm also using some functions that I generated with ChatGPT to format the date for me in a format that I want, right? I also have this function here to generate random colors. These are the background colors for like the notes, the image you saw from here, right? So as you can see, there are some background colors for these notes icons, right? So it's just random background colors. So those are what the functions are doing, and if you're wondering how I have the colors, it's like this. Nice. Okay, so yeah, so that is it. I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to go through every single one of these by writing them out, right? That's why I just put them together quickly and then show you, because you can probably look at the code, copy and paste them there, I don't think these are the exciting parts. So yeah, if you just want to have a look at how I built particular components, you can just look at the source code, look at all the properties I have on the components. These are just to speed up the process a bit. All right, nice. So I have the same thing for note item bar. All right, so I mean the bar is just the list one. So I called it bar. It might not make sense, but then I called it bar because it looks like a bar, right? Okay, never mind. But yeah, that's the other item, right? So I mean we have similar stuff like the avatar, the note title, last updated dates, with the same kind of functions that I'm using, just that the layout is a bit different. As you can see, this is not using card, this is using group. It's a box and some group in here, right? So yeah, this is just to change the layout, right? Different cards for different layouts. So I'm going to be using note item bar and the note item card inside notes list here. So the way I am going to use that is we're going to fetch the notes, but then because we don't have that yet, I'm just going to say constant notes is equal to empty array, right? And after this divider, I'm gonna put some checks here. All right, so there's going to be is loading, there's going to be other states. Now first of all, I'm going to say if notes dot length is equal to 0, then we want to show the no notes card. Alright, otherwise we want to show something else. Alright, and what we want to show is dependent on the type of layout we have chosen. So here I'm going to check the layout type as well. So I'm going to say if layout type is equal to list, equal to supposed to be 3. Now if it is equal to list, then I am going to show, I'm going to be using the note item bar, this one, right? But the way I'm going to do it is I'm going to do I'm going to do notes dot map. We would have an item, and then I am going to say note item bar. I'll pass the key and I'll pass the note, which is item. Import this. Now I also need open notes, delete notes. It is missing, so let's add those functions up here. We would implement them a bit later. So constant open note, we have constant delete notes, so we will use them. So if we say open notes, alright, so we need to pass an ID here. So that's the number. Okay, that's a TypeScript kind of thing, right? So here I'm going to say I notes, right, list of I notes. Okay, let's get rid of that error. Alright, I think the only thing I'm missing is adding these async here, because these functions are set up as async, right? Promises. So yeah, I just add them and they should be like this. Alright, cool. Now, if the layout is not less than it is grid, here we are going to render the notes differently using the note item card. Alright, and the way we're going to use it is we are going to use flex. So let me just bring that over like that, import it. Alright, so here we put that in flex. First of all, we add new notes button. As you can see, the type is 2, so we want the second button, and we are doing the same looping. We are mapping through the notes, and we are using the notes item card. So the first one was notes item bar, and this one is note item card based on the list type, right? The layout type. So let's save this one. Now we're going to get so let's go here. So we're going to get no notes to display because there are no notes yet. We've not actually loaded any notes. Alright, so let's actually load some notes for the user. Now before that, let me actually show the user who is logged in at the moment at the top here, just like we have here. Alright, so let's create the user component as well. Alright, so there you have it. Now it's a very simple component, and as you can see, it uses menu for Mantine with this button. It's a username, and as you can see, the button has a variant of transparent with the icon chevron. That's what you see there, and inside, when you click on it, you see logout, right? So the logout will log the user out by setting the user to null and setting the page to 0, so it will take you to the home page basically. So I'm going to save this. It's a very simple component, and I am going to go to app, right? So this component, and inside here, that is on top of the card, we want to put user here. Alright, let's import it, let's save it. As you can see, we have it here. Perfect. Now let's go back to VS Code. What we want to do is we want to only show this when the page is actually not the login page or the register page, right? So you just say when the page is not 0, that's where we would show the user component. So we will show it on all the other pages apart from the login and then the register page. Alright, and we are going to align it to the right side, so let me put it in a group. So that I can do justify and then do flex end. Alright, so that's gonna put the user here. Nice. So when I click on it, it takes me to the login page. So I can say John 1234 login. John is logged in. Nice. Now let's actually fetch their notes, and then let's display the notes for this user here. So with fetching of the data, I am going to use React query to do that. That's because it makes it very easy to fetch the data, and it also does the caching for you, so you don't have multiple calls being made. So I am going to do npm install React query, and I am going to hit enter. Actually, I'm also going to install the sorry, so I made a mistake. It's supposed to be npm, and I am also going to use the React query dev tool. So once this installs, we're going to set it up. So let's go to main, here. So I am going to import two things from React query, even though it's still installing. Just going to import it. So I'm going to import query clients and then query clients provider. Alright, and then I'm going to create an instance of my query client up here, and here is where I am going to use the query clients provider. Alright, so inside Mantine here, this is where I would put it. And I am also going to use the query dev tool so that I can look at how the data is being loaded. So I am going to import that as well, from the dev tools. And what I need to do is to just add the components inside the query client provider like this, and then close the window initially. So once I do this, my React query is actually set up. I can start making server calls with React query, loading data from my database. So let's go to the page and see what has changed. Alright, so we just installed another dependency. So Vite is actually doing some optimizations. That's why it's taking longer. I can refresh it again. Alright, so once it is able to refresh itself, then we are back here. But you can see that we have this small icon down here, right? So if I click on it, I see the React query window, where if I load data or make server calls, like you see the data here. Alright, so this is what it means by closing the window initially, right? That's why we said the initial is open to false, so that we don't see the window opened initially. So let's actually load the data from Supabase. So let's go back to VS Code. Now I am going to add it as a hook to make things easier. So I'm going to create another hook here. So constant, I'm going to call it use notes. It's going to be an async function. It's going to be like a normal function though. So and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do constant. Alright, so I am going to use query from React query. Alright, so let's import it. Alright, so use query. Now the first parameter I have to pass is the key. Alright, so I'm going to call it notes, and the second parameter I have to pass is the function, right? So the function to make the call. So with that, I am going to create a function up here. So let's just say get notes is the name of the function. So it's an async function like this, and here I am going to say await Supabase, imported from utils, dot from notes. We are fetching the data from notes, and then we do dot select. So we want to select everything, all the columns so we want to fetch by the user's ID. Alright, so we do user underscore ID. That's the name of the column. And how do we get the user ID? Basically, so we know that the user ID is saved in our states. Alright, so it basically means that we can say constant use app context. So something like this. and then we call use app context here, and we can get user from here. So we should be able to pass the user to this function where we call it here, right? So we can say user ID, which is a number, because it is a string, a number or undefined. Let's just put the undefined check here, the optional check. Alright, so we get the user ID here, and here we can pass the function here and then pass the user ID. Alright, so we can do async. Normally we would be able to pass like get notes like this, because get notes return an async function. I promise we would be able to call it like this. I mean something like this, right? But what we want to do is we want to say, if we pass user dot ID here like this, it's still going to complain. Alright, so this is how we are going to do it. We do async, and then we're going to do over here, just to make this one return a promise. Yeah, once we do that, it should be fine. So here we are going to get data. So the data is going to be, let's just say results, because it's coming from database. We would have the results property, the data property on it as well. So we'll call it results so that we don't do data.data. And here we would also have the error, and is loading from use query. So after that, what we want to return is we want to return the nodes, and that is coming from rest.data, just like I said. So something like this. If you don't get anything, return an empty empty array, and then the error. So either the error is going to be from here, or it is going to come from rest.error. So we're going to do rest.error. If there is an error from the results, we would return that. Otherwise, we are going to return this error. Nice. So, and then we would also return that is loaded. Like this. Nice. So let me also not forget to pass the user ID here. So in Supabase you can do something like dot returns, something like this, and here you pass the type. So basically this is list of inodes, so that it knows that the results we are going to get here is of type inodes. So okay, so this is what I'm missing. I need to do the return. So I need to do return here, and now if I hover over it, you'd see that result is inodes or undefined. So now we should be able to pass this and know that this is inodes. Alright, cool. So we're going to export this. Let's actually save it. Now one thing I want to do is I want to also do dot other. I want to order by the created ID. Actually, I want to order by the updated ID. So when the date is updated, so updated at date. So the date the notes was updated. So when I update one right now, that should pop up, and we are going to say ascending to false because we just want to order it in a descending order. Okay, cool. So we can now save this and then start using this inside note list. Alright, so here I'm gonna remove this one and I'm gonna say use notes, import from hooks, and I am going to get notes. I am also going to get it's loading and error. Alright, so let me get these two for now. Alright, so the notes is what I am using here, and we already said that if we have some notes, then based on the layout, then display the notes. Alright, this one and then this one. So let's actually see if the notes are loaded. So let's go back to, and yeah, there you go. Nice. So we have the notes here. If I change it to this, we have this one here. Perfect. So I think we are missing the icon we are using here, right? Even though there is a fallback icon like this one. Yeah, let's see. I think we don't have that icon yet. Alright, so this is the main one. I think we need to add that one as well. Alright, so I just added that icon here, as you can see. So because we are already using it, no, not here. So if we go here, as you can see, that's what we are using here, right? So we're already using it. So if I save it, we should be able to get our notes. Okay, let me try and refresh it and see. Yeah, okay, so we now have that icon. Nice. So we do this, we get it this way, right? You could see that this one is a bit different, so we have the background and stuff like that. So maybe we are missing the styles or something. So let's just go back and see what we are missing. So there are a few styles that we are missing, so I'm going to copy those styles. I'll go to app CSS and I am going to paste it here. Right. It's just a few styles basically, things like the action button, note item hover active, and yeah, things like that. It's just a few CSS styles. You can just copy and paste that. So once I save it, yeah, we should get back to how it used to be, and we have these as well. All right, yeah. So yeah, we are able to fetch the notes now. When we click on a note like this, it should take us to the next page, right? So this page is basically done, I believe. Yeah, so we are going to the next page, which is the where you can edit the notes or add a new notes, right? So the editor side. But actually, before we go there, let's actually do the open notes and delete notes, right? So when we click on one, we want to be able to open the notes by going to the next page, right? So this is what is going to let us go to the next page, and we also want to implement the delete, right? So let's see, let me remove this one for now. We are not using it. It's loading, right? So let's also put it's loading here. So here, before this one, let's just say it's loading. Alright, and here we are going to call the loading component. So let's go here. Let's first of all do the delete. Alright, so we can do a constant. We can do await. Supabase dot. So let's make sure we get Supabase from utils here. So the from nodes. Then we do dot delete. Now what do we want to delete? So we want to delete by ID. So we do equal. We check where node's ID is equal to the ID we are passing here. So we want to check if we get an error. So if error, we just for now we just log the error. So console.log error so that we can see what the error is, and then we are going to return. If there are no errors, we are just going to say console.log note deleted successfully, like this. Alright, so the note to be deleted. Let's try and check and see if we can delete the note. So we are using that here. Right, so what we have to do is we are using that here. So here we pass that to this component, and in this component we are using and passing the ID to it, right? So delete note, here is where we are passing the note ID. Right, so when we click on it, we should be able to delete it. Let's go back to the UI. Alright, so let's delete the grocery list copy. Alright, so click on it. Alright, let's check the console. So it says note deleted successfully. So even though the note is deleted, but then we still can see it's gone. Alright, so when we refresh, it's actually gone. Right, so we are not getting the instant updates when we delete the notes, right? It should refresh the notes list actually, and because we are using React query, it's fairly easy to do a refresh or invalidate, right, to be able to reload the notes. So that's what we're going to do. So here we are going to basically use the use query client from React query. So let me paste that here. We're gonna import this from React query. So we want to, after we delete the note, we want to call dot invalidate queries. Alright, and the query key, the query key that I want to invalidate is notes. I want to add this exact. It's called exact true, like this. Save it. Now let's go back. Let's try and delete one of these. So let's maybe delete a movie idea. So click on it, and as you can see, it's gone. We get note deleted successfully, and we get the updated list as well. Nice. So we are able to delete notes, right? So I mean the functionality is the same. So if you try to delete book review here as well, it still works. Perfect. So now when we click on it, it should be able to open the notes, right? So at the moment it's not doing anything, and it is fairly easy to open a note. So here where we have open notes, the only thing we are going to do is we are going to set some states, right? So here we are going to set the page to 2, which is the notes editor page. So this is going to come from context. Same for this. We also have set note title as well, and then set notes content. So we would later we would later implement the set notes content. So here, like this, we need to pass the notes that we want to open. Yeah, nice. Okay, so once we do this, we should be able to click on it to open a note. Right, so here we click on one, and there you go. Right, so new note. Perfect. So we are now on the new note page. So let's actually try and see how we can add our editor, be able to create a new note or edit a note. So let's go to code again, and we have the new note component here. So I'm going to add the initial template. Alright, so as you can see, I just filled these out with the initial template. Right, okay, so you can see that there are some methods that are missing, and yeah, there are some components we've not created them yet. That's why I have commented them out. We would add them shortly, but yeah, let's add these methods. Let's add these functions that are missing basically. So const first one is show note list. And I think you can even fill out these show note list, because what this is going to do is it is going to take us back to the note list page, right? So we can say that set page to 1, right? So because that's page 1. Alright, so that one, we also need start new notes. So const start new note. Right, now what is start new notes going to do? Let me not forget this one. So it is going to reset, it's going to reset the values that we have, like the title and then the content. So first of all, it's going to set the note ID to empty. It is going to set the note title to I think initially we set it to untitled notes, like this. Alright, and then we also have set content, which we are going to add very shortly. So let's just add this one, and we will add the set content a bit later because we've not added the editor. Alright, so which one again? So we have save notes as well. So let's just put a placeholder there for now. Constant save note. Alright, so let's just put a placeholder here for now. We would implement that shortly as well. and what again. All right, so that should be it. We have all the functions in place. So once we save it and we go back to the page, yeah, we should be able to start seeing some stuff on the page. So for example, this one. Alright, so if I go here, it's going to take us back to the note list page. So if I click on this, we see that travel blog, take us back. Alright, nice. So we also implemented the create new note, right? So when we click on it, it resets the note to untitled. We are also going to reset the content if we have one. But the next thing I want us to do is we are now going to add the editor. Alright, so the tab editor, that is a rich text editor from Mantine. Okay, so to do that, let's go to Mantine, right? And here where we have extensions, right? So we have rich text editor here. So when we click on it, you would see, right? So the tab editor, which is Mantine tab, provides a UI for tab, that is rich text editor component. So it is based on tab, and basically you have something like this. So let's go to the code, and here you can see that so let me try and zoom out a bit. Yeah, so you can see that here we are importing certain stuff from different packages, right? So that is how it works. So we have individual packages that whatever you need to make sure you add those packages. And we don't have those packages added to our code yet. We only have tab React installed, but then we want to get the highlights, the starter kit, underline, text align, superscript, subscript, and then all the others that we would need. Like these are for the toolbars here. So what we are going to do is we are going to, we've already installed this one. Did we? So let's check and see if we've installed it. So package.json. Alright, so we did install tab. Mountain hooks, React tab, and then we need to install these as well. So let's go back. We're going to do npm install, and let's see the other packages that we don't have. And we shouldn't also forget to add this one. Right, so let me copy that and add it before I forget. So that can go inside main.tsx. Let's paste that here, and then let's go back. Alright, so I just added all the extensions, all the dependencies I need. So I'm gonna hit enter to install all of them. So whilst that is installing, we are going to copy this whole component. Alright, so the editor components, you can see they are using this use editor from tab, and they pass the extensions, that is the starter kit and the line, right? All of these. And here's where they pass the content. Now you can see the content is like an HTML string basically. So let's just copy this one, and then let's go to components. We are going to create editor.tsx, and we are going to paste that here, and I am going to export it. Alright, so once I save it, let's go here, let's save this. The dependencies are done installing. I can use the editor components here. So new notes. So after the part here, we can say editor. So import, and then let's save it. Let's go back to here and let's see. Let's refresh it. And yeah, as you can see, right, this is the default content we have. So we can come here, go to the editor component, right? So this is the default content we have. So maybe we can just set it to empty string, like this. Yeah. And here I just want to add a minimum height, increase the height of the editor a bit, even if there is no content. So here where we have the rich text editor content, right? So here you can see that we have the toolbar section, right? So this toolbar, this is the closing tag, and you could see that this is where we have all the toolbar controls, right? So things like bold, italic, underline, strike through, clear formatting, highlight, code, right? And then we have another group, the H1 through to H4, and then there is another group, right? So that's basically what you are seeing here. So this is the first group, this is the second group, this is the third group, right? And so on. So you can basically add more, groups and more controls as you want. Yeah, you can also provide like custom icons and stuff like that. There are lots of customization you can do to your editor. You can check the documentation and see how you can basically do that. Right, so you can even add a color. Right, so a color picker, if you install this extension, yeah, this one I believe, you should be able to get a color picker. Right, so you can look at the documentation and then customize it the way you want. I think this one is just fine for me. So down here I'm going to say main height. I don't mean to delete that one. So main height like this, and I am going to say 500. Right, so once I save it, yeah, it should increase the height a bit. Nice. So one thing we want to do is that now this editor is where we are going to get the content from, right? So the content of the notes, if we want to get it, we'll get it from this editor. So we can do something like editor dot and here we can do get. So we have the HTML, we have the JSON, and then we also have the text. So we can get the contents either in HTML form or JSON format or in a text format, which means that we need to be able to access this editor like somewhere, because for example we are not going to need the content here. We would need the content inside here, where we would be able to click on save notes, and then it's going to take the content, add it to the title of the note, and then save it in our database, right? Which means that this one we are going to basically add it in our context, that is our global state. So let's cut that one, and then let's go to app context. So in app context we can put this one here. So let's import them. So from tab, and then let's import these as well. So let's go here, go and move all of these. Right, let's go here, let's paste them here. Alright, so what's left, we also have this link. Let's see where we are. Alright, so let's bring that as well. so we don't need this one, we need just a link. Okay, so now it's left with the content. That's the default content, so we can just move this one too, and then yeah, bring it somewhere here. Perfect. We can even remove it from here and then just set it directly here. Alright, now what we are going to do is we are also going to make our app context return the editor. Alright, so let's add that here, and we want to be able to update the content when we click on a note we've created already, or we want to open a note. So we want to get the content from our database and then be able to fill the editor with our content. So first of all, let me import the type. So what we're going to do is we are going to add a method, and that method is called setNoteContent. Right, and here it will receive the content, which is going to be a string, and then that is going to be responsible for updating our editor content. So the way we are going to do that is, first of all, let's pass editor. Alright, that is this editor, and set content, set note content. So the way set note content is going to be like is, it's going to, as I said, it's going to have the content, which is a string, and the way you update the note content is by doing editor dot comments dot set content, like this, and then we are going to pass contents here. So this is how we are going to be updating the content. So editor commands and then set content, and then we are going to set it by the content, or I mean the loaded content we are passing to the set content function, and this is going to update the content. Nice. So right now we can use the editor in any part of the code we want. So if we want to get the HTML content, we can do editor.get content from our app context. So that's exactly what we are going to do. Let me close this one, and then here it needs the editor. So let's say use app context const, and here we would get the editor, and then we will pass it here. Nice. So let's remove this unused import, save it, which means that this file is basically done. We can close it, we can go to new note, and now we can say set note content, I believe, yeah, and the first place we are going to use it is here, just like I mentioned, right? So set note content, we want to reset it to empty, and we also want to use it here. So where we open the notes here, we want to get set note content. Okay, so here we do set note content. We're going to say note dot content. Alright, so let me bring this back. I think I removed it in the course of adding this one. So yeah, let's go to new notes. Here I'm gonna bring back the open notes button and then the save as button as well. So yeah, we have 4 buttons here. In our case we have just 2 buttons, so the other 2 buttons are the open and then the save as. I commented that out because the components were not there, so I just added the component, So let me bring that back and import it. I'm going to show you the components very after that. Alright, so here is the open note, and yeah, it's a very simple note. It opens the note, right? So it calls this function. It sets the page to page 2, set the note ID, the note title, and then the note content. So here, but then you could see that we are also using the use notes here, right? So this use notes is basically going to load the notes, right? And then it's a menu, right? So as you can see, the drop down, this is where we are showing the notes, right? So which means that you can open the note from here, right? So here I can get the menu, and it's able to show you all the notes. Then when you click on one, it opens that note, right? So for example, this one, right? So that's the same thing we are doing. So we have the menu, and then we have the drop down, we have the menu item. So we loop through the notes items, and then we render a menu item for each one of the notes. And when you click on one, it opens the notes by setting the content, the title, and then the ID, and then it makes sure it is setting the page as well. I mean, we would be on page 2 already, so I don't think this one is necessary, but yeah, let's just leave it here in case. Okay, so that is what open notes is doing. Now save as, what save as is doing is, now it is saving the notes again, right? So you can see that we are doing Supabase from notes, and then we are doing insert. So this is going to insert into our notes, like our notes table, and then we are inserting user ID, title, content, updated at. So we all the time updates the date or the timestamp, right? And then we also have the select and then returns here. So we are just doing an insert here, but what we are doing is we are getting the title, right? So the title of the note. So when you click on save as, here we have a text input with the title that you want to save it as. You can cancel it, or you can click on save. So exactly like what you saw. So when you click on save as, yeah, you can cancel it, or after you enter the title, you can click on save as. And here we have the title, set title, and here we are using use effect to get the default title and add copy to it, right? And here if there is an error, if there is no error, it should just close the menu or the pop-up, set the note title, and then the note ID as well. The content is not going to change, it's going to be the same. So yeah, we will just change the note ID and then the note title. Now what is happening basically is that you're going to see that at the end of the day, if the note ID is there, it means that the note has been saved already, right? So for example, if I click on create new note, the ID is empty string, which means that we are creating a new note, and that is how we are able to know that we are saving this note from start. So we would save it to the database, but then as soon as we save it, it will set the ID number in our state, and then we are going to update it when we click on save again, right? You see that surely, but then that's how this whole thing works. So if you see that we are setting the notes ID, like notes ID, for example, like this, that is the reason why we are setting the notes ID, right? So yeah, that is all that the save as components and then the open new components are doing. So yeah, it's just a simple component. Once I import and save it, what's the error? Alright, so note ID, we are not using this yet, we will use that very shortly. We should have 4 buttons here as well, as you can see. So when I click on open, yeah, there you go, we have the notes being fetched, and then save as. Alright, perfect. Now let's actually work on getting the content and clicking save. I think save is not working yet. Let me open the DevTools again. So all the other buttons are working with the exception of save. So let's write that from scratch. So here we have save notes, and as I said, the save notes is going to do two things, right? And the two things that this is going to do is it is going to basically check if there is a note ID, right? So all we're going to do is there's going to be an update notes function. So constant update notes. It is going to be an async function. Right, and then there is going to be add new notes. Now what this is going to do is we are going to check, right? So if there is user ID, so we check this one, not user ID, I mean notes ID. So if there is notes ID, we are going to update notes. Otherwise we are going to add a new note. Nice. Now let's work on add new notes first of all. So how do we add a new note? We are basically going to do Supabase dot from. So let me import Supabase. So from notes dot insert, we pass an array and we pass an object like this, and we also want to get the notes that we add, so we do select, and here we are going to pass the details that we are going to save. So where are the details going to come from? They are basically going to come from I mean some of these contents we have here, right? The note title, I mean note ID, and then the user ID and note content, like stuff like that. So here what we're going to do is, first of all, we need the so we need a title of the note. So let's do title, which is going to be note title. We need the ID of the user who is adding the notes. So we need user underscore ID, and that is going to come from user dot ID like this. We also need the content, right? And with the content, we are going to get it from, as I said, we're going to get it from editor. So here you can say constant content is equal to editor dot get HTML. So I want to save it as HTML string basically. And that is going to be for the content. And the last thing we are going to need is the updated arts. So updated underscore art, and with that one we are going to use dates. So the current date, that is current date and time. So we do now, which is equal to new date, and we pass noun here. So this is for adding a new note. So here we want to check if there is an error. We will just console log the error. If not, we will just set a note ID. That's the reason why we are getting the data back, so that we would replace what is there with a note ID. So I can spell set note ID, and I also want to just say console.log notes saved successfully. Perfect. So we get it. I mean, we are going to get one item, so we do data and then the index 0, we get the ID, and then we do two strings, because the ID is going to be, the note ID is going to be a number by default. So we just want to change it to a string, because that's how we have our type. Actually, I don't think we have our type as a string, so let's just remove it. We can set it as this. Yeah, it's fine. Alright, so how about updating the notes? I think it's gonna follow a similar kind of a flow. We'll get the editor, we'll get the date, and what we're going to do is we are going to say constant. We're going to do await Supabase dot from notes dot updates. So we're going to do updates like this, and we're going to update it with this details. And after that, we want to update where the ID is equal to the notes ID, right? So we want to update where the ID is equal to the notes ID we have at the moment. And after that, we want to select that when we update it, so that we can get the data or an error. So here, what do we want to update? Now we are going to update the note title. So title, sorry, note title. We would also update the content in case it changes. We would update updated at this updated at now. So those are the things we are going to update. And we want to do the same thing if error, just log the error. I think we can handle this a bit later by using actual error handlers to show some correct errors on the UI. For now, we are just going to log it. Alright, now when we click on update, it is going to update it. I think we would update the title if it changes, the content if it changes. I don't think we need to reset the state back, right? Because I mean, it is going to be there. If we refresh it, we will still get the data back. So there's no need to reset the state or update these things in the states back. So I don't think we are even going to use this data. So there wouldn't even be the need to do the select here. I mean, it's fine. Nice. So once we do this, let's see. Let me just add else here and then say notes updated successfully, so that we can see it in the console. So let's go back here and test this flow and see. Yeah. So we are going to create a new note. So let's create a new note. Right. So test note, test content, and let's see what we get back. So I'll hit save, and you see note saved successfully. Right. Now if I try to hit save again, you're not going to get notes saved successfully. You're going to get notes updated successfully, right? So if we say updated, and then we hit save, we get updated successfully, and the content is going to be the same. That's why we were not resetting the state back, right? So if we try to go to notes list, come back, I mean, we still have the same content, right? And here you can see that as well. Perfect. And we can open other notes, save it, and we get notes updated successfully. Nice. So that is how we are going to save and update the notes. So as you can see, everything is working just fine. So we are able to, for example, we are able to click on save as, save it, copy, and as you can see, we have the copied version. So copied version, we click on save, notes updated. Nice. You can click on new, test, save, notes saved. Let's go back here. You have untitled notes, last updated dates, you can see just now. Alright, nice. Now let's go back and look at this as well. So let's go to notes list. Alright, and yeah, we actually implemented the delete notes. So let's test that one too and see if it is working. I think we tested that, right? Yeah, we did. So let's delete these because we don't need them. Nice. Perfect. So that's basically it. What is left to do? Alright, so the only thing we've not done yet is let's log out the registration, user registration. Alright, so we only did the login, and it's going to be very similar for registration. So we just save the user's information new, and then we would log the user in, right? So it's a fairly simple flow. So let's go back to London here. So we did handle login, we didn't do the register. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring that over, and yeah, let me explain that to you. So here we still check that the name, username, and then pin are all valid inputs, right? So they have actual values, so you don't want to submit an empty input. So we check that they have some values before. So we do Supabase from users, and then we select where the username is equal to the username you enter, right? So now once you enter the username, we check that if there is a user with that username. If there is a user with that username, we would set the error and say user not available, because you are using a username which already exists, right? And then it is going to return. But once it does not find any user, it will continue and then add the user by doing Supabase from users, and then we insert username, name, and then the pin, right? And then if there is an error, if there is no error, we set the user, that is the user state, where it's the name, username, and then the ID. Notice that we don't set the pin, right? Because we don't want to keep the pin on the client side. So we only set the name, username, and then the pin. The only time we need the pin is when you are logging in. We check that your pin is correct. So yeah, that is basically how the register works. So if I save it, I should be able to register a new user. So let's just say Emmanuel 1 2 3, and then pin 1 through 1 2. That is going to be the pin, and let's actually register. Alright, so as you can see, we have registered and it has logged us in. As you can see, we have Emmanuel here, and there is no notes for Emmanuel because we are loading the notes by the user's ID, and this user does not have any notes. So we can go ahead and add a new note. Right. So I see that there is also something we are missing here. So it does not clear the notes, and that is because, let's go to notes list. Actually, let's go to the new notes button, this one. So we are only setting the page, the note ID, and then the note title. So we need to set the note content as well. So set note content. So when we are creating a new note, we want to reset the note content as well. Alright, so let's save it, and we can click on this. It should be able to take us here. So let's add our first note for Emmanuel. First note, first note content. And I'm going to save it. Note saved successfully, and I go back. First note. I can change the layout, add a new note, second note, second note content. Let's just say item 1, item 2, item 3. Right, and I can make these list items by clicking on this. I can add some line here, whatever. Let me actually add it here instead. Right, I can make this H1 or H2. I can make one of these bold, and the line italics or whatever. Right, perfect. And because I've already saved it, I can hit save, and it's gonna say notes updated successfully. So if I go back, here is my second note. When I click on it, I get the content. I go back, create new notes, empty. Alright, and I can open the notes form here as well. First note, save as, first note copy, and as you can see, everything is working just fine. Log out. Perfect. So that is basically it. That is our simple notes application. So hopefully you learned something new. So as always, thank you for watching these tutorials, and I am going to see you in the next tutorials.